Welcome to the Outlier Mindset Podcast, your guide for living a life by design. Here, we explore the journey of becoming an outlier, finding your purpose, mastering your mindset, optimizing your health, achieving financial freedom, and building a life centered around your passions. So tune in, transform, and thrive. Welcome to the Outlier Mindset. Let the journey begin. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Outlier Mindset. I'm your host, Rodman Schley, and today I am excited about my guest. I've got quite the history with my guest today. She's an incredible human being. She does so many things in life. She chases her passions. She chases her dreams. And this person is my wife, Gina Schley. Gina, welcome to the show.
Hello, Rodman. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have this conversation today because you and I had this conversation a lot. We've been on this journey together for nearly 20 years of marriage, and June 3rd is our 20th anniversary.
Yes.
And
Where are we going?
I don't know where we're going. Where should we go?
Italy.
Yeah, maybe Italy would be nice. There's so many different things that we've come across on our journey, ups and downs, pitfalls, pinnacles. We've seen it all. And raising kids and just doing life together, living life together. I wanted people to hear about you and the things that you do in life and where you've come from and where you've gotten to right now.
Mm.
But let's talk a little bit about what you do, number one. Why don't you tell people what your current profession is?
Well, right now we have a 3-acre flower farm in the middle of the city of Arvada, Colorado, which is just right outside of Denver. And we grow specialty cut flowers for weddings. We have a CSA and we have lots of different events and retreats and things like that.
Yeah, but for you, so you were a mother for a long time. You
Hmm.
came into the corporate world for a while out of college.
Yep.
You and I got married. We had children, and then you really dedicated your heart and soul and your mind into your children for
Yep.
quite some time. Why did you pick flower farming?
Well, when I decided to stay at home and raise the girls full time, that's when, do you remember that little 4x8 bed that you made me in the backyard? So, that was kind of the beginning of it. But I think, when you have children, and I think a lot of moms who stay at home with their kids find this like you want to do something proactive with your kids at the same time, but you can still stay at home. And so that was kind of the start. I didn't really want to become a flower farmer then. I just wanted my kids to have a place to dig in the dirt and connect with nature and something that we could do together. And so that little 4x8 garden that you built in the backyard, I think we planted um, what I call it, a pizza garden. I had tomatoes and basil and garlic. I was so excited. And then it kind of grew, Then I realized that I wanted a community and to garden with because it's just so much more fun. And, growing up, we had a community garden per se in my neighborhood that all the neighbors kind of worked together. And so I missed that piece of it. And so from that little garden sprung the Rose Roots Community Garden, which I helped develop. And that was kind of like the next step. Did I answer your question? What
Yeah,
was the question?
yeah, you kind of did.
Did
You
I?
kind of.
Okay.
Yeah. So what about, I mean, you talk about your transition though, and you and I talk a lot about what people get out of being here on the farm. There's so many
Mm-hmm.
people that come in, they work on the farm, and it's almost therapeutic. It's a
Mm-hmm.
place where they can come and they can get their hands dirty.
Yep.
What makes a farm so special when it comes to just the therapy that it provides?
I just think that when people are out there in nature, like they just connect with the elements and it just, I don't know, gardens have a way of clearing your mind and just helping you kind of get in the zone of this like really peaceful place. And so I think a lot of people are drawn to that for different reasons. It's very therapeutic. It's like not no risk involved. It's just the beauty of it too. The beauty of especially a flower garden when you go out to flowers, it's like walking into a field of flowers where it's like it just kind of stops you. There's this book that I love. It's called The Invisible Embrace. Beauty, the invisible embrace. I love it. And it always reminds me of like when people come to the farm and they walk out the doors of the barn and they see the garden in full bloom, they just like are in awe. And it's
Mm.
that like invisible embrace that it gives them. And I think for me, growing up without my mother, like her garden kind of gave that to me, that invisible embrace, of like coming home and just, I was a latchkey kid. So I grew up, would come home from school, no one was ever there. But I just remember walking in the backyard and just having like beautiful blooming trees, in full bloom and that invisible brace. So I think that fueled me from a young age to like love beauty for that reason. And then so now I think when people come to the farm, they receive that invisible embrace.
Yeah, so you talk a little bit about the community garden that you had back at home growing up. For those that don't know, your mother passed on it too of
Mhm.
cancer.
Mhm.
And so it seems to me that that community garden became part of your healing process, part of your place where you could go to heal and be a part of a community that surrounded you and lifted you up.
Mhm.
This is part of
This is
conversation. See, this is
right.
this is where we're conversational.
Is that a question?
No, see, this is
That was a statement.
I'm trying
Are
to
you
set her up
finishing
so
it?
she can tell her story. And instead, I'm like telling the story. It's like, so the community,
Yes.
and she's like, this does not translate to podcasting, babe. I'm going to just tell you right now.
We'll ask a question.
So you mentioned how you lost your mother at 2. What did the gardens mean to you back then in terms of your healing?
Well, when you're two or even as a kid, I don't think you really have an understanding of what gardens are doing for you. It's like but being exposed to them has so many healing benefits, even like later, all through life. But so when my mother passed away, she left this garden behind. And really, when she moved out, so we lived kind of in this town called Genoa, Ohio, a little country town outside of Toledo. And when my mom moved out there with my dad, she convinced a lot of the neighbors to start a garden together. And so they all kind of, to this day, say how she got them into gardening.
Hmm.
And back then in Ohio, like everyone has like an acre lot, but there was this empty lot in between a whole bunch of houses, and they all decided just to garden it together. So, here in Colorado, we think of community gardens as like everyone has like a 10 by 10 plot and you garden together. But back there, it's more of like, okay, we have this quarter-acre lot. Let's all grow peas and tomatoes and vegetables together and we'll just share it all. And so that's what they did. And then my mom had like grapevines and flowering cherry trees and apple trees and lots of different like flowering things. So, anyways, so she helped them start that garden. And then growing up, kept the garden going on, and it's
Mm.
still even going on to this day, although it's starting to come to an end. But my neighbors would always invite me over to shuck peas or whatever it is, and I would just walk by it. And like I feel like I found a lot of healing through that. I didn't know it, but I kind of stayed connected to my mom through story. I think story is very powerful. And so my neighbors and family and friends always telling me stories through my mom. I got to know her a lot through there. So, one of the things I think people, when they lose someone, a lot of times people don't know what to say to them. Like they're afraid to talk about them or say their name. But I think really saying their name is very healing. Like those stories helped me know my mom and helped me connect with her. And I think that helped me heal.
Yeah. And so, a lot of people, I know that you put out a reel recently talking about, grief
Mm-hmm.
and trying to overcome grief or not. You don't ever really overcome grief. I think you can always embrace grief and
It's
heal
always with you.
slowly. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things that, even when I lost my mother maybe 8 years ago or so, you really just never quite get over that. You always got that bit of grief inside of you, but you can heal and move on slowly and
Mm-hmm.
kind of embrace the grief maybe a little bit. How has the garden been so essential for so many different people who are looking to work on their grief?
Well, I just kind of come to the realization that like the reason I garden still is through grief, and because I've healed a lot through, I lost my mother a long time ago, and I have a lot of amazing women and an awesome life. It's not like I'm grieving every day on that loss, but I think all through life you have different losses. Like you lose friends, you lose relationships, you lose jobs, careers, houses, like all sorts of loss in life. And I feel like we grieve all, in all different ways, but so many people are drawn to the farm that I've met, and they're grieving different things in life. Someone who came to the farm who was an apprentice last year lost her house in the fire, in the Marshall
Mm.
fires. And she was like just really wanting to connect with the land and just flowers and community. And that was kind of like her grieving process. And so I've just learned, it just kind of was like dawned on me this year when I made that reel of like, gosh, the gardens help you grow through grief. Because
Mm.
sometimes when you're grieving, you feel stuck. You feel like isolated, alone, like you just can't get out of this like rut. And when you're gardening, it just forces you to get out there and like pull the weeds or water, or harvest. Like it gets you moving. And so when you're moving forward, it's like you pull yourself out of that dark place,
Mm-hmm.
and you still might think about that loss that you have in your life, but you're growing through it. So I feel like gardens help you do that. They help you grow through grief.
Well, you know that I hate pulling weeds. I know that that's my biggest nemesis in life is weeds. I just don't like pulling them. But you say there's so much therapy in it.
Yes.
But is it the weeding or what is it about being out there that helps you process and helps you work through the grief?
I think so on the farm, we have apprentices, or actually our whole team of apprentices. We weed every single day.
Mm.
Okay. During the growing season, we weed every day. We go out there for 1 hour while the sun is rising and we just get on our hands and knees and we just start pulling. I mean, part of it is like satisfaction of like, it's like cleaning out your closet, right? It's like a mess and you clean it and you're like, oh, looks so clean. Garden's the same way. It's like a weedy bed and you clean it and you're like, oh, it's just beautiful. But there's also, I think, something of when the team always knows if I'm having a hard day, I'm out there, I'm not even talking. I'm just like going at it. I'm just like pulling weeds and just like putting all of my emotion into the soil, like letting it go. It's like some people might journal and, let their emotions go. For me, it's like getting out there and just like using my energy to pull weeds and put all of that anger or emotion, whatever it is, like giving it to the garden, and I just feel better after it. So it's like a moving meditation, Robin. If you would come to yoga with me, you would learn about this moving meditation. Sometimes it's hard, but when you can get through it, you realize like if I don't know, it strengthens you in a way.
I wish you would take some of that energy and focus it into your closet because I've seen your closet and your weeds look a
It's
lot
a
better than your
beautiful
closet.
mess.
Yeah, it's perfectly
I have
imperfect.
piles of organized chaos.
Oh, well, so let's talk a little bit about your journey too, because we talk a lot about purpose and when you find something that's meaningful to you in life and really aligns with who you are and what you want to put in the world, how your world just opens up and changes. And I would say when you came into what you have come into as She Grows, um, I feel like you really found that purpose and that passion.
hmm
How did that come to you?
Well, I feel like it's still coming to me. It's like I don't know that I'll ever quite figure it all out, but I feel like through the last 14 years, I would say, from that very first 4x8 bed in the backyard to the community garden to starting a garden at the school where the kids were to starting this farm. Like, I feel like I've always wanted to do something in this field, but I never really knew what it was, or
Mm-hmm.
like growing vegetables just didn't really inspire me, and growing flowers. I mean, I love growing flowers, but I think really I'm starting to tune into helping people become gardeners because I feel like everyone needs to have a garden in their life
Mm-hmm.
just for their own peace and well-being. You know, I started going down this path of trying to help people become market gardeners or like train farmers and things like that. And I realized even all the apprentices that come to the farm, I've realized that most of them do not want to be a flower farmer. Like being a flower farmer is a lot of work and it's a lot of routine, like harvesting every day, the same thing day in and day out. And most people don't want to do that. Like a small few do,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm one of them. Like I love doing this day in and day out. But most of my friends, I would tell them like you might not be a flower farmer, but you need a garden. Like you need a garden. Everyone needs a garden in their life to have a peaceful space to go, to work out. Like gardens reflect yourself back to you. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like when you go out to the garden, you learn about yourself. Like you learn about the stage of life that you're in. You learn about challenges that you have. You learn about how to work through those challenges. Like whenever I'm really struggling with something, and for me, like I don't have my mom that I can just pick up the phone and be like, "Hey, like, what do I do? The kids are doing something that I don't like. I don't know how to handle it."
Our kids? Are you
Our
kidding me?
kids, yes, I can't call my husband because he never has any good ideas, but
Shut up. That is so not true.
but
Spank them.
but I can go out to the garden and I literally say like, "Okay, what in the garden when this happens, what does nature do? Like, what do I need to do as a gardener to support this plant?" Like, we're so similar to plants.
Mm.
And so I find answers. And it's like when I'm out there and I'm working and I'm struggling with something and I look to nature for the answers, like it's like a wave of creativity comes over me and it's like something just hits me. And I feel like, okay, that's what I need to do. That's how I need to support my child.
Mm.
I think about like when our kids are in middle school and, from middle school, and you put them into a big high school, it's like they go into shock and you think that they're going to die, right? Their freshman year. But then it's like in the garden, when you take a plant from the greenhouse, if you were to put it just right out in the garden, it looks like it's in shock too. Like it looks like it's going to die. It's not used to the sunshine, the heat, and the elements. And you have to kind of like give it time and you got to nurture it and you got to keep cultivating it. I mean, there's this thing in the garden, this might be too deep in the weeds, but called hardening off. So it's like when you take a plant from the greenhouse, before you put it out in the field, you have to harden it off, meaning you take it outside and you put it in the shade for a couple hours a day and you it's like gets used to the elements. And that to me is like the middle school phase for parenting, right? It's like middle school is like the hardening off. It's like they got to get used to the real world a little bit.
Those are tough years.
Tough years, right?
Yes.
But if you just go from elementary school into high school, like they're going to really die. So they need that middle school years to kind of toughen up a little bit and then they're ready for high school.
Mm.
And so in the garden, again, greenhouse, you got to harden them off outside in the shade and then you put them out in the garden. But even then, the first 2 weeks, the plants look like they're going to die. And they haven't like set their roots down. And I see it with our kids, like that sophomore year, they start to like put their roots down at about 16. And it's like, oh, okay, they're going to make it. They're good human beings. Okay. So, anyways, I find so many answers in the garden. And I found myself in the garden. I found God in the garden. I found healing in the garden. So I feel like everyone needs a garden of some sort, whether it's a small pot that you can nurture, or it's a garden in your backyard, or a market garden like SHEGROWS. Like it's just so, so valuable for people.
By the way, just so those of you who are listening out here are hearing her talk about the parallels, this is my entire life, the parallels between life and the garden. But I will say this, there are so many good parallels between the
Yes.
two.
There's so many good parallels, and I know you and the kids like you hate it, but this is how my mind thinks.
Yeah.
Like I just can see things so clearly; it just makes sense to me.
No.
So I don't know.
Oh, I love that. So, Gina, when you started this, I know you started it kind of more as a hobby. We did the backyard for a while. Then you helped with the community garden for a while you were doing stuff, with the kids' school and the school board and all that. But then you got to the point where you wanted to make this your life. You wanted to make it a business.
Hmm.
And that's a pretty big transition, particularly when you've not really had a business in the past. So you haven't historically been an entrepreneur. Not that you weren't ever that or had it in your fiber, but you started out, you worked in corporate America, you became a mother, you became a volunteer. What was that transition like going from that to being an entrepreneur to being a business owner?
It's I did grow up doing garage sales. Okay, that was my first business. I love doing garage sales. I love the creative, like I'm a figure, like I like to figure things out. So being an entrepreneur, there's just a lot of that. And
Hmm.
honestly, like I don't know that I would have went down this path if I wasn't married to you. Maybe I would have, but I really had no intent to run my own business. Like I've loved working on teams. I love working in a corporation. I love working with a lot of people, on groups, on like strategic planning, all that stuff. Like when I worked for Owens Corning, you know it, like I would dream about it at night. Like
You would.
I love working on teams to solve big problems, you know, and I've always felt like passionate about whatever it is that I do. And now this is something that I think, you know, when the kids went back to school or they were like officially both of them in school full time, I went and interviewed back in the construction industry. And that's kind of when I knew that, oh, yeah, like I don't want to go back to selling construction materials. Like I learned a lot while I was there and I loved it, but I had already gone so far deep into the gardening scene that I wanted to figure out a way to make that my living. And so the idea of having a small farm at our home where I could still be around for the kids and I could still do like I could still balance being a mom and then having a business, it just worked so perfectly. And now, you know, our oldest is going away to college and it's like
Can't
a
believe
whole
it.
new chapter. But I feel like it's set me up in a really great place to now take She Grows even to the next level and trying to figure that out. So I don't know. I mean, being an entrepreneur is scary because it's like you're at the top all by yourself thinking through things and you're here and you could help me with a lot of that. And I know we spend a lot of time talking about business, but you also don't understand like the gardening side of things,
Nope, I
right?
sure don't.
And you're not out there weeding and you're
No.
not out there. Occasionally you'll come out and help me fix irrigation if I beg you.
Or I'll get on the
But or you
tractor.
get on the
Love the
tractor.
tractor.
But you know, a lot of people ask me like, how involved is your husband in the business? Are you doing this all by yourself? And you know, part of me wishes that you were more involved, and then part of me loves it that you're not
Mm.
because it's kind of like my thing. And I'm like, you know, like I did this. My
Hmm.
gosh, I can't believe it. Like I know how to read a P&L. Like I understand a balance sheet now. It's like I feel like it forced me to like figure those things out. But you having your own life and your own career and me doing this, it's like it's very empowering to be able to know how to run it, you know, by myself. I mean, not, now I have a team,
Yeah.
you know, but I at least have done every single thing to begin with. And now I'm slowly kind of delegating it out.
Well, I feel like we have a good balance too. I mean, when we work together, when we talk together, when we go through things, yeah, you're not out in the, I'm not out in the field doing that. But if you have questions in here that I could sit down and help work through, or if I've got a
Mm-hmm.
question that I want to pop off of you, I can do that. It's great because we both work from the house here too, which is fantastic. I love working from here. So many years I had to go into town. I had to drive 30, 40 minutes each way just to get to an office. And you spend that time. But now just to be able to get up and go right into it in the morning, be able to go out on this beautiful flower farm that we have here, this place that you've created. But I feel like we've got really good balance between the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's good to have those two things separate a little bit. Number one, we'd kill each other. We don't want to do that.
I think we work pretty good together.
We work together well. But if I was out in the field working with you all day and there was two of us in charge,
Mm-hmm.
mm,
Well, you know, he comes after this. Right. You would have to, I don't think you could ever work for me, Rodman.
Probably not. I don't think I could work for anybody. I'm not. I always tell people it's like I'd
Oh,
make
yeah,
a
that's true.
horrible,
Yeah.
horrible employee.
You're not a good
Well,
second man.
but you're always large and in charge too. I mean, you're a very in charge person. You go, you know what you want, you work really hard at it, you go chase it. When you get your mindset on something, it's nothing I'm going to say or do. You're going to just go at it and do it your way. I am the same way. So don't take that as a piece of criticism. I mean, I get up every day. It's like I have a way I like things done. I know what I'm going to go after. I'm doing my thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where I think we get the good balance because we're both driving really hard on the things that we love and the things that are important to us. But at the same time, we do take those moments to say, hey, can you take a look at this? Hey, can you read through this? Hey, can you sit down and go through these thoughts with me? And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really good place for a husband and wife to be when it comes to business.
I agree.
I have seen so many people too, so many husband and wives that don't make it because they start business together. They get into
There's
business.
a lot though who make it together, who do businesses together. So I think it's, I don't know, you know,
It could depend.
I
It
think it
depends on the person.
depends,
Yeah.
depends on the person, the business, and all of that. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I enjoy having you, being part of the business as you are, and also being able to make my own decisions, and because I know that you can't design anything.
You mean with a farm? With the farm?
With the flower.
Yeah, no, I would not be very good at that.
Mm-mm.
I do love the flowers, and it is so amazing to be able to live on the farm. And it's been even more amazing. And we've always talked about this being a magical place, where people can come to and feel good and grow. See, I mean, just everything's a parallel with, with
Mhm.
farming. But, it's one of those things where I think about you and your journey, and it's really been awesome for me to watch in a bunch of different ways. Number one, to see you tangibly bring something to life that lived in your heart and in your head. You got up every single
Yeah.
day and you started to execute on building out this flower farm because there was nothing here when we started. There's a house here. The ground was not that fertile. There was no irrigation. There was no nothing. So
Mhm.
everything that you did just lived in your head.
Mhm.
What has been what has that been like for you to watch the transition from going from a blank slate to what you have here today?
It has been like so much work, but so rewarding to see now it come to life. I mean, it is from putting the irrigation in to the soil, like it's so magical seeing the soil come to life, and the birds and the insects, butterflies, like all sorts of just wildlife. It's like we've brought this piece of land that we're stewarding to life. And before it was just sitting empty for a long time, and it's amazing with the right type of care how land can come back to life.
Mm,
And I don't know, I just amazed at watching that and witnessing that, and feel very blessed that we've had the resources to do that, and the people who've come to help. Like, I think people have been the hardest thing for me, because I was always scared that, like, I can't do this by myself. But then knowing that, like, when your heart is in the right place and you're on a mission, like, things come. People who have the same heart come.
mm.
The money comes. Everything, like, it just starts to fall into place. And it still kind of keeps me up at night with, like, the weather, and the snowstorm that's coming in right now, and the heat, and, like, there's still all of those things. But in the end, when we get to September and it's like, gosh, everything is grown, like, bloomed, and people are coming and enjoying it. Like, it's so rewarding, and you just feel like you're on the right track. Like, okay, I don't really know where this is going, but we're going down the right path.
Sometimes we can aimlessly drift through our life, not really sure how to break the patterns and live the life that you've always dreamed of. I get it. I have been there, so caught up in chasing opportunities until I found myself in a life that felt foreign to me. It took me years to unwind the messy web to get back to what I've been put on this planet to do. And let me tell you this, purpose doesn't have to feel out of arm's reach. And I designed a plan for you to do a little bit each day over the next 30 days in a challenge that I call the Outlier 30. It's specifically designed to help you find or create more clarity around your purpose. So if you're feeling lost and you want to finally turn things around and live that life that you were destined to create, sign up right now. It's free. You have absolutely nothing to lose and the whole world to gain. Visit gorodman.com/outlier30 today. So, Gina, what about the farming side of the equation? When you chose to do flowers, and I know flowers are different than, say, food, you said you weren't really as interested in food, but why flowers?
Well, our trip to Swim, Washington.
Mm,
So it kind of all started there. I mean, when we were doing the community garden, I was still growing all vegetables. And then when we went on a RV trip to Washington State, we went to Orcas Island and all of those beautiful places. Our friend Dorina just booked us randomly on, I think it was called Harvest to Host,
mm,
where you can stay with your RV on a farm. and she picked this lavender farm. Like, I didn't mention lavender at all, but we went to this lavender farm, and it was right before their big festival. So, like, all of the lavender was in full bloom. They had a huge farm store with all sorts of apothecary products, like Bath and Body products, which is another big part of my heart. I mean, I've been making like my own lotions and things like that for a long, long time. And so when I went to that farm, that was the first time that it dawned on me that, wow, like I could just have a farm and just grow lavender
Mm.
and just grow flowers,
Mm-hmm.
and make products. Because those two things, I love natural products. So
Yeah.
gardening, natural products. And so when I went to that, I came home, and that next spring, I went and did a commercial lavender growing class. And I brought like 18 plants back from the West Slope and planted them, converted my community garden bed to grow just lavender of all different types of lavender. And then we found the farm. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was that time we found the farm. So that was, let's say, in the spring. And then you walked by the property in the fall, and we bought this farm. And so I was just going to do all lavender. That was my dream. And then at the library, I found a book on the like staff picks. So they had staff picks, and I found a flower farming book, and I went down that flower farming book. I read it, I think, in like one weekend, and it was Erin Benzocaine, and she was having a flower farming workshop, and I signed up for that. And then that was kind of my beginning of so many different educational things that I've taken online. And you
Mm.
know this, Rodman, like I'm used to be anti-screen. Like I wanted to throw our TV away.
Now, you
I,
made us shut our
I
TV off for
did
like a
get rid of, we
year.
got rid of our
We had a
TV for a
detox.
year. I mean, when your kids are little, like I just wanted to be present. I wanted to do, like everything. I wanted to bake bread and clean the house and garden and all of these things. Like I just did not want my kids to be on a screen. So, anyways, we got rid of the screen. I was hardly on my computer. But then this was kind of right around when online classes started to kind of be a thing. And so I learned how to do flower farming through online classes. I've learned how to amend soil properly, business, marketing, Instagram. Like I've taken so many online classes that would have been really hard to do because I had young kids at home. Like I couldn't go away, to take classes somewhere. Like I had to take it at home. So I kind of started doing all of these things at home between the hours of, let's say, 8 o'clock at night to 3 in the morning. I know it's crazy hours, but when you're a mom and it's like you're balancing a lot of things, and those quiet hours of the night, I feel like I got a whole nother like college degree. And so, anyways, I learned a lot about flower farming. And so lavender takes a long time. It's kind of like an orchard. It takes 3 years. These are perennials, 3 years for them to grow full size so you can harvest. So in the meantime, I thought, okay, I'm going to grow cut flowers as well while the lavender is like getting started. And so I started growing dahlias and zinnias and lots of annuals and selling them wholesale and selling weddings and learning design. And so that kind of started me down that flower path. And now the goal is to have flowers as much of the season as possible. So we have tulips in the winter, and then in the spring we have bearded iris, April, peonies start coming on in May, roses, June, lavender, July, dahlias in August and September, and hydrangeas, September, October. So it's like we have flowers literally from Valentine's Day all the way to mid October. And so it's like a constant wave of blooms,
Mm.
and now, so that's how I got into flowers specifically, of going to that Sequim, Washington RV trip where we stayed on that farm. I mean, you know this.
It was beautiful.
When we go on vacation, I want to go to farms. I know it's like a sickness. I don't know what it is.
And I want to go to the JW Marriott.
He wants to go to the Marriott. And I want to
And
stay
you
in
win.
and I want to go to an RV or stay in an RV on a lavender farm, and I win. Not always, Rodman.
No, not always. But I will say this, that lavender farm was stunning. I mean,
It was
I
stunning.
fell in love with that lavender farm. And I thought, man, if I could live on a flower farm or a lavender farm like this, it would be heavenly.
Yes.
And it has been.
Yes.
It has been. But the learning curve, you were talking a little bit about education and, learning. And I'm all about shortening those learning curves, trying to take it, what would take you 10 years to do in trying to condense it to 5 or 5 years to 2, right? I know you always say you're on
Oh,
the
I
expressway
know
way,
you. No,
Rodman.
you are on the
You're
expressway.
on the
I take the scenic
expressway.
route normally.
Yeah, normally. But when it comes to education, that's the importance of online education. We just never used to have it like this. We didn't have at our fingertips the ability to learn so many different things like
Hmm.
we can right now. And I know that was a really big part of your journey.
Hmm.
And I know now you're also coming back in and you're teaching classes, you're teaching people how to garden and how to grow.
Yep.
What kind of impact did a lot of those classes have on you? Do you feel like it really took you and made you much, much better in a much quicker
Oh,
time
yeah.
period?
Like exponentially. And I do think that, you know, my dad used to say, like, when you stop learning, you die. I mean,
Mm.
he's never been very eloquent with words, but he's to the point. We're Italian, okay?
Yeah.
Like, to the point. Like, when you stop learning, you stop growing, like, you go backwards,
Mhm.
right? It's like a slow death. So, from growing up, my dad has always like instilled this like continuous growth mindset in me. So I think I will always be growing, always be learning. And to have online education at your fingertips is so phenomenal. It's so exciting that like
Mm.
we can learn from people all over the world and from different time zones, different countries, like all over the place. And we can learn on our time because most of them are recorded so you can watch them at night or whenever. But to have direct access to whoever inspires you is such a beautiful gift, you know? So, yes, so we're kind of I'm going down this path. This was my mindset shift this winter of I originally had garden classes online that were geared toward more professional gardeners. And then I realized that, really my mission is to help everyone become a gardener. And so I want to help like my best friend, in Boulder start a garden, or
Mm.
my friends across the country like start a garden and become good at it, because it is, like once you learn some of the tools like the handlebars of how to do a garden, like you understand the basic concepts, it's so fun, and you can just really experiment and design something that's really unique for you, that inspires you. It's not like garden in a box. This is like a garden that is meaningful to you, that reminds you of your ancestors, that's really just powerful for each individual person. So kind of going down this online gardening class, like I've always been the one taking the classes and I will always take the classes. But now I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to do a class, or I'm doing a class. It's launching in April, for the beginner gardener. So this is like home gardeners, beginner to intermediate, really helping people get started on the right foot with gardening.
Mm. Yeah, and I think, a lot of people, like if somebody said, Robin, go do a garden, I would do the typical guy thing and probably just go, maybe till up some soil and put some seeds in. I wouldn't probably think about the watering. I wouldn't think about testing the soil. I wouldn't think about the nutrient. It's like,
I'm still waiting for you to grow these tomatoes. I mean, you keep
why
talking
would
about
I
this.
have to? Why should I grow the tomatoes?
Rodman,
You've got this great, you're
you
doing
keep
such a
talking
great
about
job.
it. I'm waiting.
No,
I told you I would give you a bench in the greenhouse for all like Rodman's garden.
I didn't say I wanted to grow the tomatoes. I said I want to eat
Uh-huh.
the
I
tomatoes.
know.
There's a
No,
big
you did
difference.
say you wanted to grow them at one time.
Yeah, maybe at one time. But now
Yes.
I got this wife who's
Okay. What's your
okay.
question?
Anyway,
What's your question?
let's get back to it here. Now I don't even remember what the question was. You've thrown me off track here. I guess the question is, if I'm going to start a garden, if I'm going to go, okay, I think I could really use a garden. I could use the healing in a garden. Where would I start? What would be step one? What should I be doing?
Oh, Rodman. Well, in the class, I talked to you about what is your why, right? Like, why do you want to garden? What inspires you to garden? Like, what are there things from your past, from your childhood that you remember? Your grandma's bearded iris. Like I know that you talked about your grandma's iris.
I remember my grandma's beard,
She did,
but I don't. I'm just joking. My grandmother did
she
not
did
have a
not have a
beard,
but
but she
she
did have
did.
those bearded
Grandma
irises. Those, and they
turquoise.
smelled so good all around Easter. They just were
Right.
stunning.
So it's like I would have you start thinking about things from your past that would bring you joy. Right. So when you go out in the backyard, it brings you joy to walk by iris that remind you of your grandma's. Like I actually love gardens when they have plants from your grandparents. Like, wouldn't it be amazing
Mm.
if you actually had some of your grandma's iris?
Mm.
Like, I wonder if we could go back to Nebraska, knock on that door, and be like, can we take a few of those iris
Mm,
and like have them here? It's like a little piece of them in our
yeah.
garden. Like, you can pass things on like that. So people do that with iris, they do it with peonies, with roses. Like, there's all sorts of things that you can like divide and hand down, you
Mm,
know? So for me, I would help you kind of design a garden that is really meaningful to you. Step one,
yeah.
what inspires you?
And not necessarily just food. I mean, it could
Not just
be,
food. It could be, yeah, it could be food. It can be flowers. It could be herbs. It could be lots of trees, you know, whatever. But so I would have you start with thinking about designing it in a way that is meaningful to you, that would bring you joy,
hmm
and getting really clear on that first. And then kind of breaking down into the steps on like, okay, let's talk about where's the best place for your garden, you know, and is this going to be in a pot, in a raised bed, or is this like in your landscape, you know, and then start talking about sun and water and different things that you're going to have to think about. So I kind of walk people all the way through from inspiration into designing it into your space, then actually how to build it. So I'm going to show you like actually how to put fertilizer down in your garden,
yeah.
how to set up irrigation. So it's teaching you the science, showing you how to design it, and then helping you build it.
So it kind of starts with your circumstances. I mean, if you live in an apartment, you might be growing in some pots, or if you're on a small piece of land, you might be in a small
Yes.
bed.
Yes.
I mean, I remember our first garden that you talked about us building. We were on a small piece of land. We had a big house on a real small piece of land, and we had just so much room to fit a garden in there.
Right.
But you could still do it.
Yes. Yes, you can still do it. And I love that garden.
Mm.
Like, do you remember? Like,
Oh
I
yeah.
love that garden. And even growing up, my dad had a little, you know, we had like a little box on our back patio. It was like maybe a foot deep and a couple feet wide. And as a little kid, I planted flowers in there. So it's like from that, I love that little bed. And then our 4x6 bed in the backyard. I love that pizza garden.
hmm
It's like, and now like I love our rose garden and
Yeah.
our lavender garden. So no matter wherever you're at in your life, whether it is a pot of herbs on your kitchen table or some planters in the backyard or 4x6 little raised bed, like they're all so great because they are going to reflect where you're at right now in your gardening journey. And they're just going to be that little slice of heaven, that like that little quiet time that you get to go out there and dig in the dirt.
Yeah. You know what I love, by the way, and I don't know if people can hear this through our mics right now, but hear the pitter patter of rain
I
on the
know.
roof, and I've
I
always
love
loved
the rain.
the
I
rain.
love the rain.
You've got to, right? I mean, it sustains your gardens, it sustains
Hmm.
life.
Yeah, like the rain when it starts coming in the spring, you just like it, the smell of rain,
Mm.
and then the ground starts to just soften and like come back to life. Like it's just one of my favorite seasons.
Yeah.
It is like my favorite, like absolute favorite season is spring.
Well, you always talk a lot about the transition of the seasons and how it relates to life,
Hmm.
and how every season represents something in our lives.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
Oh my gosh,
So why don't you
Rodman.
give us
Like,
your
you know,
thoughts on
I
that?
can talk about an
I know
hour
you could.
about
I know you could. We
this.
don't have an hour.
But okay, let me just say, like when you garden from spring to fall, you experience the life cycle in 1 year. So like your whole life cycle as a human being, like you see it just like a little glimpse of it in a year in the garden, like from birth to death, right? Like we're birthing little plants, we're birthing a garden, we're nurturing it. You know, it's coming into full bloom, you're harvesting it, and then it goes dormant or it dies and you're putting it to bed, like you're putting it to rest. And there's so many emotions all the way through the season. And I think about my own life or your own life, like where are we at in our season, like the grand season,
Mm.
right? Like our life as a season. Like
hmm
we are probably we're probably in the full bloom season. Like we're in the fall, I bet. Like we're coming into the fall where it's like we're not quite there yet, but we've done like our childhood, like we've done so much work to get us here, right? We've developed our will forces, like we're strong, We have resources. We have this farm. We have all of these things going for us. We have our family. And it's like there's so much good in our life that we can harvest, you
Mm.
know? And it makes you think about like, I mean, 100 years is still not enough time. Like we want more
No.
time than that, right?
Yeah.
But how can we fully enjoy and just, fully, not savor, but like feel so grateful in the moment that we are right now
Mm-hmm.
and living so present in this moment of this full bloom, like we're going into this full bloom season and just we have our health and we have our family and like so great. And then, the fall season and the winter season is behind us. And I don't want it to seem gloomy or down, but I guess when you experience death at a young age, like I did, it really taught me how to live fully and
Mm-hmm.
realize that like tomorrow isn't given. It's not like you can't just like bank on it. You hope it is. And I hope to live 100 years, but you know, life happens.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I think about that all the time. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be thinking about death all the time, but I do think about it. I think about it in the garden that like now we're coming up to spring. So we have all this like young energy, this excitement for this new season, all of these new ideas. That's like, that comes with spring, so much hope, right? And then, we kind of work through the season and we put the garden to bed at the end of the year. And one of the things that a lot of people don't think about is putting the garden to bed and the beauty of putting the garden to bed well, like consciously, like um, putting the garden to bed, whether it's putting leaves on your garden and compost on your garden and tucking things in really nice and neat it, at the end of the season, but also how we honor and respect people who are dying in all different stages of life.
Mm.
Like I've been with, this year lost my grandmother and by her side. And it's like, there's so much beauty in that too, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Gosh, you'd get me all teary eyed, Rodman.
Well,
But
let's,
no, like I don't know. It's just life is a beautiful thing and gardens just help you appreciate each stage of that and be present in each stage and
yeah.
see the beauty in each stage.
Well, and I know too, you've spoken the words walk in the world for me. I know those are words that are important to you and were left behind by your mom, basically. What does that mean for you? I mean, is that how you are living your life? Are you walking in the world for your mom?
Yeah, I think she's walking with me all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but like I have that plaque hanging in my office. It says walk in the world. And that was a plaque that was hanging in the hospital where she worked. And then my grandma had it for a long time and my grandma gave it to me. And I've just always thought about that, like walk in the world. I said, walk in the world for me, and so I think a lot about like walking in the world. She died when she was 33, and that's so young,
Mm-hmm.
it's like so young to die. And so I felt her near me a lot, but I also feel like, gosh, this is my turn to walk in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like her turn ended really quick.
Yeah.
Like my turn, it's like I'm on a swing set and I want to be on the swing for as long as I possibly can. Like this is my turn,
Yeah.
so walk in the world, like walk in a way that that you love to walk, like being with your family and doing the things that you love. I mean, I love gardening. I love being home with my children when they come home from school at 3 o'clock. Like I have a flexible job where I can manage both of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's like walk in the world in a way that inspires you. If you were to be on the playground and you were to pick one thing that you want to go play with, like, what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, this is your one chance. And so, this is how I want to walk in the world.
Well, and I feel like that's a way to give respect to the people who came and went before you. I
Yeah.
mean, people who have this life, it's beautiful, right? We're full of these blessings that we have around us all day. Sometimes we'll get caught up in the one negative thing in the day, but there's 20 blessings just saying, look at me, look at me, look at me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think truly respecting those people who came before us and aren't here to walk in this life with us.
All right.
You've got to live your life fully. You've got to be taking care of others. You've got to be inspiring. You've got to be teaching. You've got to be putting back into this world and not be walking around blindfolded. You've got to be doing what's meaningful to you.
Yes.
And that's why I've always loved that, because I watch what you do and how inspired you are in what you do. And it's like you're giving the ultimate respect and love to your mother, who can't be here on this journey with you right now. And my mother, we lost my mother too about 8 years ago. And I guarantee you, I talk about this all the time with you. They would both love it here. I mean, if they were still walking this earth physically with us, and I'm sure they're here with us right now, probably curious on what we're talking about, but if they were here and alive, they would love the magical place that is this flower farm,
Mm-hmm.
because it is a reflection. It's a reflection of your mother coming out through you.
Yeah, a lot of people always say, they're like, Gina, gosh, you're so much like your mother, but like, do you remember her?
Mm,
Did you like see her do any of these things? And I'm like, I don't have any memories of her. You know,
yeah.
I was so young, but I know her through stories, you know,
Mm.
and I think we would have been pretty good friends.
No, you would have been really close. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, they would have probably, both of our moms would be living out here and
Mm-hmm.
coming to this farm every single day to get their hands in the dirt.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't know this too, but you and I have had a TV show on PBS nationally
Good old
for
urban conversion.
Urban Conversion. We started that quite some time ago. Our kids were really young when we started that show.
Yeah.
It still airs on PBS nationally now, so people can go check it out, about sustainability in urban areas. But we covered a lot of topics that were related to farming. Even when we went out to Palisade and filmed in the
Mm-hmm.
lavender farm, it was stunning. But that was quite an experience too. We got a chance to go and actually go to the White House,
Yep.
and we
Michelle Obama's kitchen garden.
we filmed in the Obama kitchen garden, which was pretty incredible, seeing our
Yeah.
kids run
Which was
around the
really the
south lawn.
catalyst for Rose Roots Community Garden, because
Mm,
she wrote a book right about the same time that we I remember reading her book and thinking, gosh, if Michelle Obama can tear up the south lawn of the White House, like surely we can start a community garden in Arvada, like
yeah.
in this open lot. And yeah, so it was there's so many different pieces like of our life over the last 20 years. That's crazy, like how long we've been doing this. But from urban conversion to the community garden to the school gardens to now the farm, it's like I don't know what my life would be like without a garden. Like it's
Mm,
just so instrumental in the fiber of who I am.
yeah. I talked to a lot of people who are thinking about writing books. You've brought up books quite a bit, and you and I are avid readers. We both like books a lot,
Mm-hmm.
for the learning and just sometimes for the relaxation of them. But when you talk about books, you talked about how you went to the library and found a book on cut flowers,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you've got this flower farm, right?
Right.
You just told a story about how you read Michelle Obama's book on the garden, and then you went and started a community garden, right? I always tell people, I say, listen,
Uh,
if you've got
it's
a book in
powerful.
you,
Books are powerful.
they're very powerful. And if you've
Yes.
got a book in you, you need to share it with the world.
Mm-hmm.
You need to share your gifts and what you know with the world, because just those two books inspired big things in your life. You got an entire community gardens that so many people enjoy because you read that book and you were inspired to do something about it.
Right. I know.
And, for me, it's one of those things where I think about, again, not just the learning curve, but if you've got a piece of knowledge, if you're somebody sitting there going, I've got something I want to give to the world and I'd like to write a book, write it. Don't write it for you. Write it for that person who's going to go start that community garden or go start that business or do something maybe they didn't even know they had in them.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I so moved by books and biographies and just learning people's stories, you know?
Yeah.
So I know you're like prodding me. You're like, that person's like pushing me to my edge, Rodman. Write a book, write a book. I get it. I know it's, it has to like come to you. And
No, you've got several books in you.
like right now, you know, I don't know what I would write. I mean, I have some ideas, but it hasn't like come to it's not as clear right now in my mind.
Yeah, but you're sharing your gifts through your courses right now, too,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's a billion different ways to share gifts. When that book comes to you, you're going to write it. It's going to be incredible. But right now, you're putting into the world with your gifts. You're sharing it through your courses, teaching people how to do a garden at home, how to grow at home, how to overcome grief in the garden. There's so many wonderful things that are coming from that. So there's a lot of different mediums. But for those
Yeah.
people who are sitting on the book idea, write the book.
Right.
And if it's a course, do the course. If it's social media where you can teach, do your social media.
Yes.
But don't hesitate to take those gifts and those superpowers and put them into the world.
Yes. 100%.
Gina, I don't think we have much more time. I think we have hit the end of our interview today, but I do want people to be able to find you.
Yes.
You have got beautiful social media. They can also take a look at the farm and see everything you've got going on here at the farm. Where would you like them to go?
Well, our website's shegrows.com. And then social media on Instagram, that's kind of my place that I hang out the most. And it's She Grows Gardens on Instagram. And everything is out there. So those two things, my website or social media, Instagram, you'll find everything about the farm.
And you're going to love it. For those of you who are listening, go out and take a look. Follow Gina. She is doing so many tremendous things, and you will see the magic of the farm even through the Instagram. You can see the beauty of it. You can see the beauty of the flowers, the beauty of the people that come and work here on the farm. It's just a magical place. So definitely go out and give Gina a follow. I got one more question for you.
Oh, gosh. What's for lunch?
No. Yeah, but what is for lunch? No. The question is this. If you could go back in time and sit down with your younger self and give yourself one piece of advice, what would be the most valuable piece of advice that you could give to yourself?
Rodman, I told you to give me any hard questions up front so I could think about it. Oh, I'm not good on the spot. Okay, let me think. What's one piece of advice I would tell my younger self? I would tell myself, I would tell myself, I think, to listen to that voice inside. Like that voice as a kid. And actually, when I journal in the morning, I always write to my younger self.
Mm.
Like, dear little Gina, like, you can do this. Like, listen, like, you got this. Like, I'm like my biggest cheerleader. So I would tell my younger self, like, listen to that voice in your head. Turn down the noise of everyone else, of all the naysayers. And you're not going to figure it out all at once, but just keep going in that direction. Do what you love, and you'll become a master at it. Little Alan Watts here. Do what you love, you'll become a master at it, and eventually people will pay you for it. It's like so hard to think about the money versus like, this is what I love to do. Like, this is my passion. Like, follow that. And then everything else will come into place.
I love you.
Love you too. Let's go eat.
Thank you for being on the show today, Gina.